Hello and welcome to Tile Coach. I'm Isaac Ostrom. I'm a licensed tile contractor in Northern California, and today I'm here in our beautiful showroom in Rocklin, California, and I'm working on building a couple shower displays in here for our tile that we show in the showroom. But what's also cool is I get to make tutorial videos for my YouTube right here in our showroom. So I'm really excited to be working on these projects. And the first thing I'm going to do is install a foam pan for our tiled shower. Now, most of you, my viewers, are probably thinking, why are you doing a foam pan? You've seen my videos before, and I'm usually always floating mortar on my pans, and I usually don't talk too highly about foam pans. Now, there's a reason why I'm using foam in here. For one, I want to help do-it-yourselfers and beginners learn how to do a tiled shower with a foam pan, because I think you'll probably have a higher success rate if you use a foam pan than if you've never floated a mortar pan before. It usually takes a couple tries to get it good, and I think you might actually have better results if you install a foam pan than if you do a mortar bed poorly. So that's one of the reasons I'm trying to help you. And so I'm going to be doing this foam pan, but before I do, I need to show you a very important step, and that step is making sure that your substrate is level and flat before you install the foam pan. This is a 32-inch level. I'm a 1/4 inch low right here, which is way too much slope going the wrong way. And now the reason why we need to start level and flat and why that is so important is because the foam pans come with a pre-pitch on them. They're already sloped, and if that floor is out of level, your slopes are not going to be correct, and you'll run into puddles and other situations. And you might ask, well, why don't you just use thin set mortar dollops to put that pan in and level it? Well, that's a big no-no as well, because if you use dollops and you don't have full coverage between the foam pan and the substrate, that foam pan will be unsupported in areas, and as people step on it, it's going to give, and when tile gives, that's not good. It's going to end up cracking, it's going to fail, and most likely you'll end up having catastrophic water damage. So we do not want that. So what I recommend is getting your substrate level and flat before you begin. And most of the time that we see a substrate in a shower area, it is not flat and it is not level. Now, whether that is a cement slab that is doing things going up and down, dips and humps, or whether that is a plywood subfloor where joists are crowning. So because I want you to be successful, I'm going to walk you through how to use the self-leveler to get your substrate flat. So the first thing you need to do when installing your self-leveler is you need to use a primer. Now, you can usually get the primer at the same place that you get the self-leveling underlayment. I just happen to use Customs for this video because it's what's readily available at Home Depot. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not pitching their products. They're just easy to get, so that's why I'm using it. It's most likely what you're going to find if you walk into your Home Depot. So primer can be diluted on surfaces that aren't as porous. If you have a really porous substrate, I believe you need to use it full strength. But read the directions. Every brand is different. I recommend, and it'll tell you if you need to dilute it or not. So you basically just wipe the primer on and let it dry. Dry time depends on the temperature and humidity, of course, but in my experience, it's usually about 30 minutes to an hour, and you get a nice primer coat dried. Now, the second thing you need to do after you get your surface primed is you need to create dams where you do not want the self-leveler to run, because self-leveler comes out as a liquid, and so if you pour it and if you have any cracks, any gaps in your subfloor, or of course around the drain or out past the curb, it will just run like water. So you basically need to create little dams going around where you do not want the self-leveler to run. I have found the best product to use for this is the expandable spray foam that you get in a can. And again, you can get this spray foam at any home improvement store, and what you do is you just go around and squirt the spray foam I do a perimeter because I don't want the self-leveler running under the bottom plate, the bottom 2x4, and I don't want it running down into the drain hole, of course, so I create a little ring around the drain hole. And then I also create a little dam where the outside edge of the curb is going to be, not the inside edge of the curb, but I want it to be where the outside edge of the curb is going to be. Now you could also probably install your curb before and then just pour your self-leveler up to it, but I also want to stress that you need to have your curb level as well, right? So if you're installing a foam curb, you do not want to be setting it on a unlevel surface. So we might as well go ahead and pour the self-leveler all the way out to the outside edge so that when you put your curb on there, it's going to be nice and flat and level. So once you've created those dams with the foam, and I've found in my experience, it takes about another 20 to 30 minutes for the foam to be firm enough to withstand the pressure of the self-leveler up against it. So it doesn't need to be fully cured, it doesn't need to be fully hard, but as long as you can touch it without the foam being tacky on your finger, I have found that is set up enough for the self-leveler to run up against it and not run out. So that's usually about 20 to 30 minutes. Again, temperature and humidity probably will affect that. So you got your primer, you got your dam, now you can go ahead and mix up your self-leveler. Different self-levelers will have different water mixing ratios, so make sure to read the directions on the bag on how much water to put in. A measuring cup or a measuring bucket will be really helpful for this. The measuring buckets are great. You can usually find them in the paint section. And so you know exactly how much water to put in, and they usually give you a little wiggle room on how much. You have a little bit of a grace period there on the amount of water. So for this instance, I just try to stick right in the middle of that range that they gave you for the water ratio. So once you mix it up, you want to mix it up so that when you mix it, it is ready to pour. You want everything ready to go. You want your tools in place. You want everything ready so that when you mix it and you stop mixing it, all you need to do is carry it and dump it out. So preparation is key. And what I have found is that for a typical shower pan that's 4 or 5 feet by 2.5 or 3 feet wide, you're usually around 12 to 15 square feet for a shower pan. And so what I have found is that one bag is just about perfect amount to pour for a shower pan. That's going to give you about a ½ inch of self-leveler on the entire pan area. I believe the directions say at 50 square feet you get an 1/8 inch. You divide that in half to 25 square feet, that would give you a 1/4 inch. Divide that again in half to 12.5 square feet would give you a ½ inch. So if you followed along with my math, please check it, leave the comment in the section below. I screw up math all the time. But so yeah, one bag will give you about a ½ inch thickness, which is going to give you a nice little bed. It's going to allow the self-leveler to really work. The thinner the self-leveler is, the harder it is to let it find its own level. So if you give a nice 1/4 to a ½ inch bed of self-leveler, it will really seek its level. So once you pour it out, you do need to work it around a little bit. You can't just pour it and walk away. You need to pour it and you want to help it. That you see how there's surface tension, and even though it's flowing and it's liquid, self-levelers do have surface tension. And that's by, if you break the surface tension of the self-leveler, you just kind of help it around into the corners, help it towards the edges, and just kind of wiggle it a little bit. You just almost want to wiggle it to break that surface tension. It will seek its own level. So you do need to do that. You could do that with a trowel. If they're doing large areas, tile installers will use what we call the spiked roller, which has little spikes, and it just breaks up that surface tension and allows it to flow. But for something this small, a simple trowel will be really easy to use and effective. So once you're done with that, basically you're done. But I do like to take the opportunity before the self-leveler is all the way set up. Usually if you wait about an hour, the self-leveler, if it's a rapid setting like the Customs Level Quick, in about an hour you're going to be able to touch it without it moving. It's going to be hard enough to touch without it sticking to your fingers. It's not going to be all the way set up, which is good. And I like to take the opportunity at that point to remove my expandable foam where I don't want it, and also take a trowel and you can clean up the edges where it meets the foam, because again, you got surface tension and you might have some ridges around the edges where it meets the foam or where it stops. Knock those down while it's still soft, and then it's probably a good time at that point probably just to knock off, call it a day, and come back the next day, because I believe they want you to wait 4 hours from the time that you pour it to the time that you cover it with tile, or in this case with the foam. So once you do that, it's going to be ready to go. You're going to have a flat, level, firm, hard substrate that's very durable. And then when you go to install your foam pan, it's going to be easy to get full coverage, because you're just going to do a nice even trowel of mortar on there, plop your pan in, and it's going to be level, and it's going to make it so much easier than if you try to judge it with thin set on an unlevel substrate. So I hope this video helped. If it did, leave your comment in the section below. If you would like to support us, I got these really cool t-shirts that I just made. If you like them, this is just a saying of mine that I got from an old general contractor 15, 20 years ago when I used to work with them a lot. And I always remembered, especially when there'd be a mistake on a job, or he went over on a job, maybe he underbid a job, he would always say, well, some days you make money, some days you make friends. So that always stuck with me. I think it's really cool to not take yourself so seriously in the building trades, and sometimes, yeah, maybe sometimes we're just volunteering a day, but we got to keep a good attitude, and just remember we'll get it on the next one. So if you like the shirts, you can go to tilecoach.com, and I just have a limited number of these t-shirts. I just made up a few. So if you buy one of my original Tile Coach t-shirts, I'll go ahead and throw one of these in there for you. Just write in the comment section when you buy the shirt. It'll have a little place where you can put the message. Just say, I would like one of the Some Days You Make Money t-shirts. So, and it is my privilege and my honor, my joy, to be able to help you guys get better at what you do. So last but not least, I love you. I love being your Tile Coach, and we'll see you on the next video.